Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA 179 on this Thursday, September 17th. Eating once a day. The amount of time that somebody asks me that thing, and even today, how the hell do you eat once a day? Do you really eat once a day? If I was to eat once a day, right? And again, and I say this to anybody that listens to understand, I did not choose to eat once a day. By stepping into the realm of intermittent fasting, I walked into the life of eating once a day. And when you're looking at once a day, the benefits of the fat loss benefits, right? And living an autophagy type lifestyle and an intermittent fasting lifestyle and so on and so forth, the fat loss is like the icing on a delicious cake, right? Like the perfect icing, like lifestyle icing, but the perfect icing on top of the perfect cake, right? And that's what the fat loss is. And why do I say that? Like, again, this morning I had a gentleman, I was parking my vehicle at the office, and one of the adjacent business, he walked up to my vehicle, like he literally like looking at me, and I thought like there's something, right? And I thought he had seen me, but he hadn't seen me in a long time. And he couldn't believe what I looked like as opposed to what I looked like with my 330, 350, 340 days. And that happens to me a lot, right? And I'll get people like that hadn't seen me in a while, which is natural, but neighbors, like 110 pounds. When I look at the videos of myself and I see the pictures of myself, I see the difference, right? But that fat loss, like I said, is the icing on the cake. And I'm going to explain to you what the cake is, right? And those that I do this for a reason other than the fat loss, okay? The fat loss is like I just said, is to me is a secondary. Is a secondary. If I look at why I did this, I did this intrinsically because my daughter had wrote that message in my card. If you were listening to my previous podcast about, she wanted me to be there to walk her down the aisle, right? Because she recognized that. She recognized that I was heavy, right? And it was her loving words of telling me, you need to lose weight, Poppy, right? There's a lot of other reasons that I went into that, and a lot of medical reasons that I went into that, and I started feeling everything. I started feeling the Kerplunk effect, right? And then when I started researching it, and I've done the diets, and I've done the lifestyles, and I've explained all this before, and a lot of those lifestyles, you're monitored like drill sergeants, right? If you stop following those lifestyles, you stop following those I'm gonna call them diets, and that kind of stuff. If you stop following their processes and their regimes and their things, it falls apart because it's not realistic. So I wanted to do something that was realistic, something that I would enjoy every day, right? So I live a European lifestyle. I live a Mediterranean lifestyle. That's how I live. And that's what I love. It's actually a very good Zen feeling, by the way, when you live that lifestyle. So I'm going to get into the fat loss was secondary. And why was that? To me, the fat loss is secondary. It's the benefits of, I saw myself, I knew where I was going, I knew what I was going to look like in my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s, and 100, right? But it's this, it was the inflammation, right? And I'm going to talk about flavoring in a second here. That inflammation, that caused by the insulin body, by anything but flavoring process and so forth, right? So the inflammation, when you look at inflammation, these are some of the causes of diseases that are caused by inflammation. Just Google that. Diseases caused by inflammation. And here's some of the stuff you're going to get, right? Pretty much all cancer stages are caused by inflammation. Neurological disorders, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, ALS. This one here, when I saw that, to me, ALS is no known cause, no known cure. And then when I saw ALS and MS, right? Huntington's, all those conditions, right, that are linked to neurological disorders that are linked to inflammation, diabetes, diabetic complications, mental health, right? What is it? Muscular and skeletal diseases, muscular and skeletal diseases, metabolic disorders, your heart, your chronic fatigue, your fatty liver. I had a fatty liver, right? All these things, these inflammation-related conditions that I was suffering from. And when I started looking at the diagnosis of all my conditions, the commonalities, right? And all of these things were tied to inflammation. The chronic inflammatory disorders like your IBS, your rheumatoid arthritis, your cardiovascular disease like your strokes, all these conditions tied to inflammation. So a lot of the conditions that I had, my knees that still kill me today, right? My hips issues that still kill me today, the heart issues that I was having, the palpitation issues that I was having, I can keep going on here, the IBS, the sleep apnea, fatty liver, like I mentioned, all these conditions that I was having, all these breakdowns that I was going through, and the extra medication that I was talked about, right? All were linked to inflammation. And so I'm looking at me, Jean-Gabriel Guignon, I'm listening to messages like my daughter. I have friends that I saw myself like getting huge, right? And I saw myself falling apart because I started adding prescriptions to my life, right? And the bobos started accumulating in my body, right? And when I started doing my own research, my own facts and that kind of stuff, and then I started looking at lifestyle intrinsically, everything led me to inflammation. Like everything that I was suffering from inflammation. And going to a lifestyle like intermittent fasting that led me to the eating once a day, I knew that intermittent fasting would help with inflammation a lot. Proven, data, whole 9 yards. And I've talked about the Dr. Jason Fung, a brilliant Canadian nephrologist. He wrote that book, and there's all these other great books that are written about this lifestyle. But when you look at Dr. Jason Fung, it's about the medical side. Like he wrote the obesity code. When you look at the obesity code and everything that's tied to inflammation and the diseases that come from it, right? That's why I got into this world, right? Because I wanted to walk my daughter down the aisle, but I don't even want to only walk my daughter down the aisle. I would love to walk my daughters, Madeleine and Eva. I would want to walk them down the aisle. I want to be around for their children. And could you imagine walking their children's children down the aisle, right? And that's when I look at intrinsically life and in the facts that are out there that you can live 100, 120 years strong. You can. People do, right? And why? Because they live this lifestyle, right? I live a Mediterranean lifestyle, and I've mentioned this many times, and I live that European lifestyle. It's a very, very, it's a Zen feeling lifestyle, right? And so, and why do you work so hard? Like, why do you work so hard? At what age do you want to be sick? We work so hard to enjoy the rest of our life. We work so hard from our teens all the way up to our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Those that I'm never going to stop. I hope to work till I'm 100 with social business and that. But why do we do it? So we can be sick? Because my previous lifestyle was certainly heading me right down that path, like right down that path. So why do you work so hard? That's a question I ask my business peers all the time, my government friends, my colleagues, my families, my everything. Why do you work so hard, right? So that at what age do you want to be sick? Like, let me write it down for you, because you're heading that way, right? Those that listen to understand, I was heading that way, and I'm honest with myself now, right? I'm honest with myself because of all this, right? And the reason I wrote flavoring here, the everything tied to flavoring, and people ask me like my sparkling water, everything that I do, I don't add flavoring. I don't want flavoring, right? If I can't, unless there's products out there that truly don't affect you, right, in flavoring. And that you have to measure that with yourself. And that's a whole podcast on itself that I want to talk about. But to start this lifestyle, and that's why I cut the process, that's why I cut the sugars. By cutting the process, by cutting the sugars, enabled me to live how I live today. And that one is so if I'm going to live European, if I'm going to live Mediterranean, like they actually lived pre-1900s, without the process, without the sugars, but they eat naturally, right? They eat good. I eat good. I do feast. And people that see me eat, I do feast. But by taking out the flavorings and the processed foods, right, and the sugars, it will enable you to really morph your life. And then you want to tweak it to yourself. You want to eat 3 times a day, not a problem. Absolutely not a problem. But when you go real and when you go non-processed, non-sugar, and take out the flavoring, that inflammation process that's creating all these diseases, that's going to help you out. I'm telling you, it's going to clean you out. And when I say clean you out, autophagy, and people ask me all the time, you must have skin draping, you must have loose skin, you must have, no, right? I still have the belly. I still, it's going, right? But the abs are all there. Like the abs are coming out up to here, and then this has to go, right? But that's like in every other body, right? But what happens with autophagy, is a cellular cleansing. Like it's basically a cleansing cellular. So you're cleaned up from the inside out. It becomes like a shrink wrap. You actually tone up naturally. Right? And I've had friends that have had the surgeries, and I have a beautiful soul that passed away and he had the surgery before. And if I was here today, I'd be talking to him, right? The surgeries and all that. If you're still eating the same lifestyle, it's still going to kill you, like a lot younger than what you are, right? And that's what I speak that way now to people because of knowledge, right? Because of the knowledge, and now like the thousands of hours of training is in my brain from listening to the doctors that out there and the true people with the knowledge, training, and experience with the data and the research that live the lifestyle, that promote the lifestyle and have been doing it for a decade plus. Right, so those are the people that I listen to, and when I put it all together, and I tweak myself all the time. In the last year and a half, right, I've tweaked, I pivot, and why? Because everything I do, I enjoy now. I enjoy. So eating once a day and the fat loss is secondary. The primary thing in your life should be longevity. Longevity to enjoy it. The gift that you were given to be born on this earth. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA 179.